Well, thank you very much, Oscar. It's great to be here. I think it's the first time we've had 4 of the finalists actually share a table together. We might get the 5th sometime. But it's been a very good discussion. Good to see so many people. I'm tempted to ask which is the oldest railway society, but I possibly shouldn't trade on that. But rail absolutely matters. Rail is really, really important. It's essential for commuters. It's essential for leisure travel. It's essential for freight. And it's essential to the economy. So that's why I'm really pleased that we are talking about it. And there's a lot that we could cover. We've heard quite a lot. And I suspect in 5 minutes none of us can cover everything that you set out for us. So let me just pick up 2 things. Investment and the cost of use. And investment is absolutely key. As has been said, we do have creaking infrastructure. We lost so much that we need. And it has to be rebuilt. And that's why I'm really pleased in investment split up into control periods, 5-year periods. Many of you know this. The latest one, control period 5, we've seen £11.5 billion for infrastructure investment. It's a huge increase on the 8.8 billion there was for the previous cycle, which was set up under the last government. It's the biggest investment in the railways since that Victorian era that set us up so well. That is what we have to have, and that is what we have to continue. Now, there's been a bit of a tension within the coalition because we tend to push for more investment in railways, they tend to push for more investment in roads, and we have a bit of a back and forth. And sometimes we win out, as we did with that. We don't always, I wish we did. But that money, and that's for the 2014-2019 period, has made a huge difference. We've seen huge amounts of electrification, whereas there was almost none previously that was happening. We've seen more rail carriages, I think 3,000 new rail carriages, 550 in the previous cycle. We've seen investment in access for all, so disabled people can get to the train. We've seen cycle rail improvements. We're about to see even more of that at Cambridge, desperately needed. We've seen some really good schemes locally. So one I'm particularly proud of is the Cheston Station development that I'm sure you all know about. This is something I pushed for when I was a young councillor, almost 15 years ago now. And I was told it was a ridiculous pie-in-the-sky idea and it could never happen. It's great to see the building work actually happening. But we're also seeing things, so already funded, already going ahead, is the western section of East-West Rail, the old Cambridge-Oxford line. That is going ahead, that is funded, that will be in place. And we've been pushing really hard, I'm vice chair of the all-party group working on this, to get the middle section, to get Cambridge properly connected. It's been a dream for, I'm sure, many people in this room for a very, very long time. We've got Network Rail to put the money into the detailed route finding. I think that will happen between 2019 and 2024, the next control period. We have to get the details right. And there's more. That might unpick the Addenbrooke's train station. I think we still have in our party offices the old Addenbrooke sign we made when we were campaigning for it. That might happen as well. March Wisbeach reopening, massively helping to get people into work in Cambridge. That is a small piece of track, huge effects. Improvements on the Liverpool Street line and much, much more. So I think there is a good story about investment. It has to continue, particularly some of the east-west rail links. And that's not just about getting from Cambridge to Oxford. There are people who think that's important. It's about connecting Norwich and Ipswich in. It's also about connecting everywhere on the way so that people can work here and not have to pay the incredibly expensive prices to live here necessarily with a reliable form of public transport. Then let me talk about fares. I mean, I think fares are far, far too high. I think there's no doubt about that. They've been too high for a long time. They've been going up for a very long time. And the last government actually had an active policy of increasing fares so that, quite deliberately, so that people who use the railways would pay a higher share. That was an explicit policy. And that's why they had this policy of RPI plus 1%. That's why there was a 66% increase in rail fares under the last government. Absolutely huge, beaten only by the 76% increase in bus fares. Absolutely fantastically large. And I don't think that's okay. And so I fought the last election, delighted to win, saying that would not be okay and we have to end the era of above inflation rail fares. And that's what we managed to do. So at the last election we had the Conservatives wanting 3% above inflation, far too high. We had Labour wanting 1% above inflation, and we had us calling for 1% below inflation. Now initially the compromise was 1% above inflation, the old policy, and exactly 50-50. Exactly split between us and the Conservatives. We've then managed finally to drag that down to inflation only. So after over a decade, we've managed to stop overinflation rail fares, which is a start. But I think we have to go further. I think we have to bring them down in real terms. I've argued for this time after time after time. We've had motions from Labour calling for 1% above inflation. You can read all my speeches on it at great length. I've also just recently tabled a motion in Parliament, I've almost finished, tabled a motion in Parliament saying explicitly that it is time to say enough's enough. We have to have those below inflation increases. I'm delighted the Campaign for Better Transport have supported it. I've got 31 MPs on board so far. If any of you are not my constituents, please write to your MP and get them to sign, because we will make that difference if we can. On tickets, we have to make sure we get the clarity, the flexibility, the right to the cheapest fare, and decent refunds in cash, not in vouchers. And I would say more about that if we have time later. But essentially, it is really essential for all of us, for our economy as well as individuals, to get a good service with good reliability, availability of seats, good regularity, and at a good price. Thank you.
Parliamentary candidate is Rupert of the Green Party.
Hello, I'm Rupert Reid. I'm your MP candidate, but I'm also our national transport spokesperson, so this is a subject very dear to my heart. And the first thing I want to say is that we in the Green Party believe in the railways. Now, my colleagues here from other parties will tell you they do as well, but it's kind of undermined by the fact that they all, including the Liberal Democrats, believe in very extensive investment in growing road network. And that tends to be where the bulk of the money actually goes. We don't believe in that. We think that the road network should not be expanded, but that the rail network should be expanded, and so should the cycle network, and so on and so forth. We believe in public transport. We believe in rail, and prepared to put our money where our mouths is, so far as that is concerned. We also believe in the railways being a public service run for the common good. So we want to take the railways back into public ownership, along with 70% of the British population. If this election were conducted on the issue, that one issue alone, well, I'll get about 70% of the vote, which would do me very nicely, thank you very much. It's not just a popular policy, it's a sensible policy. When the railways were privatised, they were balkanised, long-termism was taken out of them, and for the first decade or so after privatisation, a truly humongous sum of money went into the pockets of fat cats. It's not so bad now, but the sums were eye-watering for the first 10 years or so, and that's an absolute disgrace. So we want to bring the railways back into public ownership. That's what our MP, Caroline Lucas, is trying to do. If I become your MP, that would be one of my top priorities. How do we want to do it? In a cost-free way, we would take the railways back into public ownership as each of the franchises lapse. So it would take a period of time, but it would eventually come to be a proper joined-up public service once again. That would help us to plan better the future of the railways. It would also help us to reduce the fares, because of course there would be no more profit being creamed off the top. The railways would be a non-profit run in the public interest. As our passenger-focused person said, passengers need to have a much stronger role. We would imagine the future of the railways being heavily devoted to the views of stakeholders, not just to the views of the train operating companies with the profit motive. And so, our headline, one of our other headline policies in this area for the general election is not 1% above or 1% below or whatever. We are promising a 10% cut in regulated rail fares. It's all costed out. It would of course cost quite a lot of money. That's investment, real investment in the railways. Where would the money come from? It would come from the budget for the expansion of the road networks, which all the other parties are in favour of, and we think is obviously a serious mistake. So 10% cut in fares, especially directed to the most important fares for turning the railways into a service that actually works in the public interest, namely walk-up fares. It's absolutely absurd that people are incentivised to book 2, 3, 4 weeks in advance for journeys that they don't necessarily know they want to take at that time. It also creates extra unnecessary journeys, people thinking, oh, well, yeah, I quite sort of fancy a £5 trip on this long journey to do some shopping or something. They're competing with somebody else who might be wanting to turn up on the day who actually needs to travel. Walk-up fares ought to be the priority. Of course, there's a role for cheaper advance fares, but walk-up fares ought to be the priority. So that's where we would invest the most of this money invested into reducing fares, to make walk-up fares truly affordable, which right now on many of our lines, of course, they are not. So that's really the headlines of the Green Vision. Obviously, I don't have very long here, but those are the headlines. Taking the railways back in public ownership and actually reducing fares, 10% cut in regulated fares, eventually all regulated once we get the railways back in public ownership. And of course, going along with that is that we would want to expand the rail network. The various things that Julian has already name-checked, we're in favour of, but we think the timescales are inadequate. With the requisite political will and with serious investment, we think we can do these new lines and reopenings and so on and so forth a lot quicker than is currently planned. So, you know, put the A14 on hold and bloody well get the Oxford link brought in. We need it now, not in 10, 12 years' time. Lots more to talk about, as I say. A lot of it is in this document, which I launched today, a transport green print for Cambridge, which you can find at the back of the room, or you can find it online on the Cambridge Green Party website, where we explain our vision for the future of transport in Cambridgeshire, and included in that, of course, our vision for the railways. One of the things we talk about, again, picking up on what the passenger focus colleague here said, is that we think that the time is more than ripe for smart cards here in Cambridgeshire. It could be an expansion of the Oyster card itself. It could be a card that is devoted to Cambridgeshire. We tentatively suggested the name, the CAM card, C-A-M-B-C-A-R-D. You heard it here first. No, it's not the same spelling. It's not the same spelling. That could be a crucial way, again, in which we make the experience of using the railways and other public transport modes more convenient, quicker, and devoid of some of the problems that we currently have involving the absurdities of ticket prices. I think that's enough for now. I'll be very happy to answer your questions. A radical green vision for the railways. We believe in the railways for numerous obvious reasons. I haven't even mentioned the environmental benefits, which I'm happy to bore for Britain for if you would like me to. And we think that this is actually a vision which is overwhelmingly popular for good reason. And I hope to get the chance to help to put it into practice, but that's up to you. Thank you.